Hello folks, and welcome to the channel, or welcome back. And I know it's been a while since I posted a video, but meanwhile I've been working on the TVR. And we're going to continue to work on the TVR in this video, more specifically on the exhaust system. But before we start, I'm just going to show you what we have done meanwhile. And you might remember that in a previous episode we had been checking the cooling system, and we had a lot of leaks on the hoses, but we also had a leak on the radiator. And meanwhile the radiator has been rebuilt. There is a new core inside. This is the core here, and it's about ready to be mounted, but we have some other elements that we are still missing to complete the cooling system, so I can't do it right now. For the cooling system, we're going to swap out the water pump, and this is actually already the water pump that I have taken out because I worked on the timing cover and the timing gear, but you'll see how we will do that in the next video. The other thing which we are about ready for is to replace the thermostat, and this is the old thermostat. It looks quality-wise a lot better actually than the new one. This is actually a metal one, where the old one was a copper version. And of course the thermostat housing, I have that removed as well, just to get it cleaned up a bit and inspected for pitting, because that was one of the main issues. While I was taking parts off the car of the cooling system, including the thermostat housing, I decided to change the thermostat. So I ordered up a new one. And this is the new one, and that's the old one. I cleaned up the old one a little bit, I have to be honest. But look on the quality difference in build. The new one is all metal, the old one is copper. I mean, that's a major difference. And to be very honest, I think the new one is actually crap. It's an El Cheapo product. If you look closer, you see the radius here. All this whole area over here will open up when the thermostat opens. Look at the surface, how small that is inside here. So the flow through to the old one is so much better than through the old one. This is way too restrictive. So I'm not too happy with this. In addition, and I don't know if you can actually see this, because there's a small little opening there, like a little valve that is always letting some water through, no matter if the thermostat is closed or not. On this one, doesn't exist. So I don't think I'm going to use this one. I'm going to just put it aside, and maybe it's a spare if something breaks down. I'm probably going to continue using the original old one. So that's another example on how aftermarket parts sometimes are really crap, and you don't know that before you've seen it. So I took off a lot of the cooling components, and the swirl pot was removed as well from the car. It was really dirty, so I decided to shot blast it with Garnet 360. But while doing so, I noticed that it had a few issues, and the issues are actually rust and corrosion, and therefore I had to do something with this. When the rust came off, I found out that we had holes in different areas, so you can actually push through sometimes. So this was just the disaster waiting to happen. So I ordered up a new tank. I could have fixed this one, but I ordered up a new one. It's a bit faster, at least I thought it was faster, and I got it from Racestack, so I'm waiting for that one. Normally it should arrive this week somewhere. I also removed the overflow tank, and that was a copper type, so that one was shot blasted, and then we have given it some fresh paint. So all this is now ready to be reinstalled as soon as we have all the parts for the cooling system. And while I was waiting for the parts, I took the opportunity to start cleaning up the chassis in the front. Now, this is not the final cleanup. I'm going to do this late this summer. I'm going to take the top off, and then we do a complete chassis blast and a powder coating, and maybe even a new chassis. It depends a bit on how bad or how it is. Now, this chassis turned out to be quite all right in the front, but of course that is not where the weak spots are. So I actually shot blasted the whole chassis, and then I kind of coated it with a rust inhibitor, and then I painted it black. So at least now the front part looks okay, and I could start installing all the new components on it that I wanted to install on it. I also took care a little bit of the cabling because that was kind of a mess. So we checked the fans, we realigned them, so all that is now okay. And we also reworked the suspension. I actually repacked the bearings with grease on the wheel hubs here. I did rework the brakes, the brake calipers, and these are the Lockheed brake calipers. It's the same as what you find on the Land Rover. I cleaned them all up. Actually, I reworked the cylinders or the pistons inside and new seals, so now they are nicely tightly together again, they don't leak. And I checked them for thickness, and this is still pretty much all right, and even a single slice of it is all right. The same thing for the brake pads. I removed them, I double checked them, I put some copper grease back on, and then we put them all back together because they were still very good. So I don't replace things that I don't need to replace. And then we checked all the bushes on the wishbones. And actually, we reworked and we reconditioned the actual shock absorbers and the springs. The springs are still the ones that were on there. The shocks have been partially replaced. So all that was put back together, so now it's nice and tidy. And this is how I like it. Now I can actually work on it. And I also took off the inner fenders or the inner wings because somebody had cut them off before. So I have a company in the Netherlands remolding those or rebuilding those for me in fiberglass. Duncan was willing to do it for me as well in the UK, but the shipment was a bit too expensive and the logistics were a bit too hard to get it done. So I went closer home to this company in the Netherlands, which is the TVR shop, and he's building it. So hopefully I can pick him up this week or next week, so then we can put those up as well once we are done with installing the cooling system. Now, this is the anti-roll bar here, and the downlinks that I had on there, they were really worn out, as you can see. So I ordered some new ones, but I haven't received them yet. See, this is not even moving anymore, or barely. So this is going to take a while because they're on back order apparently. The downlinks, they look really in a bad shape. And this is the kind of thing, once you start working on a car, you always find something else that is wrong. It never stops. You think it's a small job to do, and then you find something new and something new again, and you keep changing things. And you might also remember that in the previous episode, we did check the timing gear. We took the timing cover off, and we checked the nylon gear. It was still intact. There was a lot of good discussions if I should change it to a steel gear, aluminum gear or not. I didn't at the end because the nylon gear was still in a very, very good shape. I might do it later. I don't know yet. I have plans anyway with the motor, maybe next year, to put some valve rollers up, and maybe that's the time then I will make that change, because then I have to disconnect everything anyway. But besides that, I also worked a bit on the sump. You remember that the car was leaking a lot of oil, and the MOT was referring to an oil leak. Well, that came actually from the seal of the sump. There was actually nothing seal on there except all blue silicone. So I took all that off, and then I put a new seal up, a cork seal, and then we blasted the sump, repainted it, base paint, and then black paint, and then we put it all back together. So all now that is very nicely sealed up and clean and tidy, and that's the way I like to have it. But that's not what we're going to do in this video. I just wanted to give you some wrap-ups, what I've done. Most of it I have not taped because it's such a basic stuff to do. But in this video now, or this episode, we're going to continue with installing the new exhaust. And when we did the technical assessment of this car, of all the work that had to be done, we were able to identify that the exhaust was in a pretty bad shape, especially the front part, the headers. They will have to be replaced. There were holes in it, and in fact all the mufflers were probably badly mounted, and they may even be leaking. So in this video we're going to take off the headers, and now it's easy for me because I actually have a lot of open space here, but if you have to do this when everything is on it, then that's a bit more difficult. So it's always worthwhile to take off as much as you can. It doesn't take a lot of effort to take all this off and then do a good job. It makes life a lot easier if you're going to work on it. So these are the new headers, and I kind of wrapped them up already in heat wrap, because that actually improves the flow of the gases through the headers. But also it reduces the heat in the engine compartment, and as you all know, this TVR has a low type of radiator, and they're a bit prone or error prone to overheating. So that's what this wrapping will actually prevent. If you want to know on how I did wrap it, then check out the channel, you will find it. I have a video separately on how I did wrap this heat wrap and what types of heat wrap are available. So now it's about time to remove that exhaust, and I'm going to start from the back, take all the mufflers and all the pots off, take the tubes off, work my way from the back to the front. If you have to replace the exhaust on the car, it's a bit annoying if you have to crawl under the car, and I've done this for many, many years, so it's always good to invest in a small lift. I've bought this lift for about 1,500 euros. which is a really good price, and this is a 4-ton lift. I actually lifted my Defender with it. It's a 2-pillar lift and it works just perfect. So if you can afford it and if you have the place for it, use that, because it's going to save you a lot of hassle and it's going to save you a lot of time, and it's far more safe. So let's move it up and see what we can do. I'm going to work my way from the back to the front to remove the exhaust. There are attachments in the back here on this muffler system, but it may be different on yours. And then I'm going to loosen up all the connections of the individual pipes, and I'm going to try to remove it little bit by little bit. I don't know where I'm going to get it loose, but we'll see. There's also a support here, so I might actually work it the other way around and do these clamps here and then try to get everything back. So not very hard to do. This is the first muffler towards the back, so I might be lucky to undo this side here first and then slide it out completely to the back. But therefore I have to remove the clamps, and I always use this kind of shock liquid to spray on those clamps so they get loose pretty easily. It helps, but of course if that doesn't work, then you might want to cut these. I got a bit lucky that the car actually had an oil leak, because everything is pretty much oil, so it protected it a little bit. So sometimes you get lucky. All right, here we go. And these clamps, well, I'm going to throw them away anyway at the end and replace them with new ones, but I will still keep them so I know the right sizes. So now I'm going to put some WD-40 on it and try to open up this clamp here a bit and try to open up this tube. So now we need to undo this bolt here, and it looks like somebody has put up some tie wraps. Oh man, now I'm blind, I don't see. I looked in the light. I think they put tie wraps up just to prevent the nut coming down. That's kind of crazy. So now we need to undo this bolt here, and then the whole exhaust should actually come off. I might actually hold it up here a bit so it doesn't fall down. So let's see if we can hold it up like this. Work on your own is always a bit of a challenge, isn't it? With two people, it's so much easier to lift these things out, but this will work. All right. Go. And now let's see if we can wiggle it our way out. It's not going to be that easy, I can see that. So I can't get it off that easily, so I'm not going to force it. So what I'm going to do now is actually to grind off the front headers. That's the old pipe anyway, and then the whole thing become loose, and then I can just drop it in. So let's see if we can get this whole thing loose now, and I will release this other rubber here in the front. That's okay. Yeah, that's it. And now the whole exhaust should come off, right? There we go. So, whoop. So here's the exhaust. I'm going to take out the pipes one by one now and then disassemble it and get it all cleaned up. That's easier than doing it under the car. So this went quite smoothly. So this is a bit of a close-up of what they have done to this exhaust. So the front pipe here, this is the part which is coming from the header. In fact, it's the header pipe, and you see how thin that became. It's almost nothing left. And then here they did some ugly welding job. I don't know why they did it like this, but all that has to be replaced, of course, and taken apart and cleaned up. So the next step is to take all these mufflers apart and then clean them all up. So I'm not going to keep you busy by watching me undoing all these connectors. You've seen how I've done one with heating it up. That always works. There we go. That's out. So we've taken the mufflers apart, and these are stainless steel mufflers, as it appears to be. They are not broken. They're a little bit dented here and there, but overall they are still in a fairly good condition. So what I'm going to do with these mufflers now is I'm going to clean them up, including the pipes that go with it. Of course, I still have to take off this front end here, but if you're going to clean stainless steel mufflers or stainless steel in general, you have to be a bit careful. So I'm going to shot blast the stainless steel mufflers, and to do so I'm going to be using a product called Garnet, and I've been using that before. It's a very fine grit, and it will take off all the dirt that I have on that. And here is this Garnet. You can see this is really very thin, or fine. So that's a good product to do that. You can also do it with other products, but they have to be natural products. Don't use any metal products like aluminum oxide or steel balls, because you're going to pollute the stainless steel and it's going to rust afterwards, because these elements will be sitting in your stainless steel. With natural products like Garnet or nutshells, that's not going to happen. That's going to work just fine. So that's what I'm going to do next. So therefore, I'm going to hook all this up in my Ibex 9. This is a great tool to have if you're really into restoring cars as a hobby or whatever. Then I really recommend that you buy something like this for blasting all your parts, because it saves you so much time in cleaning up. And if you wonder why I'm recovering those mufflers, well, that is very simple, because a brand new muffler system in stainless steel is going to run you about 1,200 euros or 1,200 pounds or dollars, whatever it is. And that's a lot of money. So if the mufflers are still in a good condition, and they appear to be in a very good condition, then I'm going to reuse them as much as I can. So let's start blasting. So if you want to keep the shine on this RVS, then you should not be blasting with Garnet 360, but you might want to do it with baking soda. Then you can keep the shine. But you can always bring back the shine afterwards if you want to polish it out. For me, I don't need the shine underneath the car. And here it is, the complete muffler system cleaned up. And as you can see, there's nothing wrong with these mufflers. So this is looking quite all right. I think the only thing I might have to do is to open up these connection points, because they were really squeezed together. That pipe I could get in. This pipe is just on the edge, so I will have to open that up a bit. But for the rest, this is looking pretty good. I stayed away from the end because this is the part that's sticking out, so I like to have that shiny. I have polished this one up. That one I still have to polish up. But I think, all by all, that will come out quite nice. So the time has come now to remove the last part, which is the header that's still on the car, and that's 6 bolts to remove, and that's pretty easy. And then you need to lift it out from the top, because you can't get it through the bottom, because part of the tubular structure of the chassis is in the way. So let me do on those bolts, and then we'll pull it out. Undoing the bolts is easy. It's a 1/2 inch spanner, and just, loosen it up. Now, to get it out, the alternator is best removed because otherwise you can't really lift it up. So let me do that first, and then we continue. So remove the plug in the back so we can take it off. All right. Hopefully they don't break off, because sometimes that can happen. The next one, and then I'll come back to you as soon as everything is done, because this is just unbolting. I try to hold it with my other hand so the pipe doesn't fall down. Now, funny, I don't see a lot of seals, so I'm going to let it hang for a second, and then we're going to try to get it out. Okay, so let's see. This is going to come out easily, or not. There we go. So, with a little bit of fiddling, I got the header out of the car, and I should have removed the dipstick and some other cables and hoses that were in the way, and I'll do that for sure when I put the new one in. And you can see how badly this is beaten up. There's dents all over. It's been welded badly here, and in fact there is even a hole if you look closely enough. Here it is, see, that's where I was blowing. So it was certainly time to replace this header. The seals or the gaskets, they were kind of very flimsy and very thin. One is actually leaking, so no wonder it sounded a bit harsh or loud on that side when we had the engine running. Now the next thing I need to do is to get some of those supports here. These supports are holding up the exhaust towards the chassis, and this one is still good, but the other one came apart, unfortunately. Here it is, so that came apart. Typically that happens because this is old rubber and you have some corrosion and these things break off. So I have to get some new ones before I can put everything back together. So putting everything back together will be for the next video, guys. I'm sorry, because I can't do it right now because I don't have the parts for it. So in the next video we're going to install the muffler completely and the new headers, and then that should be a fairly short video, and maybe we start to work a little bit on the cooling system by then. So I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.